I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Vallecitos Water District. And I'd like to have Director Martin lead us in the pledge, if he would.
Well, thank you very much. We love you. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. President Pro Tem.
Diane, roll call.
Director Evans? Here. Director Martin?
Here.
Director Snella?
Here.
Director Hernandez?
Here.
And Director Alvarez?
Entertain a motion to adopt the agenda for this evening.
So moved.
Second. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Public comment, Diane, you got any? I saw Mike standing up. Are you coming to the front, Mike?
No slip.
Late, but I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, you missed your vote. Too late. If you want to fill out a slip, we'll
We'll break the rules.
again.
The rest was taking a nap.
Well, while that's going on, we're going to continue with the consent calendar. Entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar unless there's an item that wants to be pulled.
So moved.
I second with a question on one item.
Second, and which item would that be, sir?
Item 13A.
13A, very good. There's been a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar with the exception of 13A. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Yes, Director.
I remember as early as 5 years ago, the question was brought up, why do we have a water meter count? And it was always explained to us, well, that way we know how everybody's so busy and we'll get rid of that someday. We'll get rid of that someday. Is it that hard to delete that item? It's not an item that we ever talk about, discuss, or even look at. So to me, it's just like, why do we have it on there? Just a question.
It's just information to try to help the board understand the amount of facilities that we maintain.
And I think we just had a question on the last board meeting about how many, didn't we have a question about how many meters we had?
It comes up from time to time.
Well, if it's just a button, fine, but I always thought there was some work involved and it seemed kind of useless because we don't really require.
read it.
Deleting it from the report would be easy. It's whatever the board would like to see.
Oh, then leave it. If somebody likes it, that's fine. I
Okay.
thought they didn't like it 5 years ago.
All right. Very good. Here we go. Feeling a little bit chagrined here.
Move to adopt
Move to adopt.
13A.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Public, are these both, and this is two. We do have a public speaker. Mr. Hunsaker, would you like to come up, sir?
Yes.
Understanding that you have 3 minutes and we will not be able to speak to you.
On any oral item,
That's correct.
yes. In looking through past projections, financial reports and such, I noticed that at one time we had our facilities fees, water and sewer, down to a deficit of $4.3 million. It's now almost $14 million. And we're told that it'll probably expand to no more than 25 million. But there's no explanation given as to why we have these capacity feeds deficits. Now, the logical conclusion is that we're not charging enough. And if we're to pay for this through a debt, it means that if you had a fixed bond service, you're going to pay at least twice as much as interest as you do on the principal. So this can become up to about a $75 million debt to be paid by the ratepayers in general. I think something of this magnitude deserves considerable more detail as to how it came about and what is to be done to eliminate this continued explosion in debt. Thank you.
Would staff please get with Mr. Hutzinger and educate him on where we're at there?
We can do that.
Thank you very much. That takes care of public comment. I see we have no awards. So we're moving on to action items 2.1.
All right, I'll take that quickly. So what's in front of the board is a consideration of approval to dispose of surplus land, which is basically the undeveloped portion of the district land adjacent to our administrative facility here. The item was taken to the board in a closed session, and direction was given to staff to consider to go forward with disposing of the property. In order to move forward with disposing of the property, it has to be declared surplus, and that's the action in front of the board right now, to declare that portion of land surplus. Should the board declare it surplus, staff would reach out to the city of San Marcos and the school district to see if they have any interest in acquiring the property from the district, and if so, that would begin negotiations for them acquiring the property. And if not, we would then come back to the board for further direction.
Very good. Yes, sir.
Yeah, a couple of questions. And maybe it's just legalese that you have to use this for, but dispose. We might be looking at selling it, we might be looking at keep it, we're not looking to dispose it.
It's,
But if it's legalese, leave it.
look, the legislature writes these things, and I don't even think sometimes they pay attention how the words matter. But it's dispose in a general sense.
Okay,
Could be lease.
and I don't know that we're directing staff to provide written offers to sell or lease the property. I don't believe we want to do that.
Well, the statute requires that we do that. I mean, it triggers once you declare it surplus, because of the public policy on low and income housing and moderate housing, and the public policy on parks and recreation and things like that, you have to, as a special district, we have to go through this process and offer it up to the local agencies for those purposes. Now, as a practical matter, will they show interest? I mean, many times they don't. I mean, it's very rare that we ever get any takers. But
I would
And
imagine.
I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
I get that, that's
Okay.
thank you. But what I'm saying is, direct staff to provide written offers to sell or lease the property. A written offer, to be a true offer, wouldn't it have to have a dollar amount attached to it?
no, because all it does is begins the negotiation process.
Then there is no offer, because there is no monetary
It's
value.
in a general sense. If you just want to sell it, you could say, we're going to offer it for sale. Or you could just say, you're the monarch of the offer, if you will. You get to be the offers. But at this point, we haven't, it just triggers the negotiation process. So then you can
Okay.
sit down with the city and come up with it. You don't have to say, we don't have to give them a specific offer in public right now.
Okay.
We can
As long as
negotiate
It's
that.
not locking us into something.
Yeah, it was certainly.
Oh,
not-
absolutely not. That's why. It's really an offer to negotiate.
It was not staff's intent to be putting dollar amount to this and offer it to them for a certain amount. It was just to see if they have a level of interest in acquiring the property.
Okay, thank you.
Move for approval.
Move for approval, a second.
Second?
Okay?
No resolution necessary, I see. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good.
Mr. President, may I ask your indulgence on something?
Why, by all means,
In
sir.
my exuberance on the prior list, there were two questions I had on item 1.9 and 1.10. Would you allow me to ask those questions a little out of order?
Let me check my Robert's Rules of Order.
Sorry.
I'm sure we can indulge you,
Well,
sir.
thank you very much, Mr. President. On item 1.9, my question is, construction contract awarded north and south pressure reducing station upgrades, which I think that's fantastic. We're gonna modernize them. And in the report, it says that there's gonna be savings, because we don't have to have someone manually go out there and check it. So my question is then, there is a savings. How much is that savings estimated to be yearly? Are we saving a person, 2 people, 3 people?
No, it's-
What's the savings of now putting it online, because that's one of the sales points of us doing this. And if it's not a sales point, don't put it in there. But if it's a sales point because it saves us time, how much time and what's the dollar amount?
I'll say it's a partial sales point. The main reason is we need to modernize the facility. It's not big enough, it's not modern enough.
Understand.
It does save time, it's a fraction of a body, if you looked at hours over the year. And I don't know if we have that number, Ed's not here tonight to come up with the number, but it certainly would save staff time from going out and visiting the site. If the board would like, we can come up with an estimate of dollars saved per year.
I'm just curious, if we're using that as one of the points, we should have a saves time, yeah, well, so does me walking to the front and
Yeah.
posting something.
I'll make a note that when we.
Just out of curiosity, what kind of time, what kind of savings are we looking at? Because that's another great point.
Right.
If we're saving money, that's fantastic.
That's a good point, and in future similar items, we can, if we're gonna reference cost savings, we'll come up with an estimate of the cost savings.
Yeah, if it's mentionable, if
Okay.
there's enough money there. And thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And then item 1.10, resolution adopting district pay schedule. You know, I saw in here that we talked about the finance committee. And gosh, I know I'm getting old, but I'm not getting that old. I don't remember us even seeing the pay schedule. I see it here now. I didn't see it at our meeting, nor did we have a chance to discuss it at our meeting, because I do have many questions about it. But I didn't see it at our meeting, at a finance committee meeting, but yet it says that we discussed it. And so what did I miss? You were there, boss.
Where do you see the reference to the finance committee meeting?
No, let me find it.
I didn't see that either.
Discussion. Well, maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's a different one I was thinking of for the discussion.
So just to clarify what this item is, I'll say it's kind of a formality. This isn't doing anything that the board hasn't done already. So part of it is to reflect the change in the range, the pay range that was done in the MOU. So when the COLA comes in, we have to adjust the pay ranges. And there's a few positions that were eliminated and a few other minor changes. All this is doing is kind of putting in one place to memorialize what the board has already done for the purposes of PERS. PERS has a requirement that we have an adopted pay schedule. So that's what this is.
And when did we adopt the pay schedule?
Right now, you'll be doing it.
Oh, okay, so this is unadopted.
Yeah, it's been adopted, I'll say it's been adopted in other ways. The board approved the MOU, which worked off a previous pay schedule and increased it by COLA allowances and other things similar to that. So what this is doing in kind of one place, taking the action to memorialize all those changes and to say this is the district's pay schedule going forward. And then subsequently, every year, we'll be taking this forward to the board on an annual basis.
Okay, quick. I'm saying, so the first time we have to question anything is here in a public forum. Because I have some questions that really shouldn't be taken up in public forum, in my opinion, but I could be wrong. That I don't want to bring up in public forum, but they need to be brought up. But where does the board have the opportunity to bring this up, not in a public forum?
Well, the board can certainly direct that this be put on a future agenda. It could be directed to go to the finance committee. You can ask questions in public right now. There's no real urgency to this item. So if there were questions that the board had or any board member have, we could consider those.
And if we are discussing wages, I suspect is the question, of employees, isn't that something that is a closed session item?
Well, it depends on what your question is. I mean, I
Well-
think what we want to do at this point, maybe if there's some concerns that should be addressed to the general manager, maybe you can talk to the general manager, and then we can figure out how they can come before the whole board.
Or closed session?
Yeah, and it may be a closed session. I'd prefer not to, if there is something that's appropriately in closed session, I'd prefer that we don't do that in open session, okay? But I think if you share that with the general manager, we'll figure out how it gets to the, communicated to you guys.
And that's why I'm asking the question,
Okay.
rather than, in the past, they would have just walked into it, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Okay.
be very politically correct.
You're
Okay.
you're
Well-
getting there.
So then I would ask that we would table this for a future agenda item.
Yeah.
I have a comment. I don't know what the question is, and I don't one that we're questioning it, but my understanding is we've already accepted the MOU, and these are in place currently, accepted and in operation.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
So if we're in conflict with anything in here, the conflict comes up in the next MOU process, is that not correct?
Right, I mean, all this is doing is.
We're just putting it in a form that pleases the PERS people.
Right,
But we've already approved this MOU and it's functioning, and these are in place.
correct.
Okay,
This is the pay schedule the payroll is using when they cut checks to all the employees.
all right, so I feel there's no reason to table this, we've already approved it under consent as it is, and I think the questions are probably more than valid. I think what is, and all we're simply doing is telling PERS we put it in the form you want it. This is not something we renegotiate at this time. So that's my only concern with even thinking about tabling. I feel like it's already approved, and it's already approved on consent calendar.
As really there is no time-sensitive issue, I would allow it to table just to move on with the agenda, if that's the
So moved.
consensus. That it,
I move.
okay,
It's not time sensitive.
very good.
What time, sir?
Is there any action we need to take because we already approved it?
Oh, yeah. So what do we need to do?
No, I don't think any urgency here. We can
No,
bring it-
no, the action, because we've already approved the consent calendar, now we've,
Approved on consent.
1.9
Now the
is
one on
being
approved.
tabled, so
Okay, well, I think we need to reconsider this item pursuant to the request
I
of Director
entertain a
Martin.
motion to reconsider the approval of the consent
So
calendar.
moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Very good. Now,
Thank you.
I'd entertain a motion to table item 1.9.
Ten, right?
1.10.
No, 1.10, excuse me.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, is that the one we just did?
That's the one, yeah, this is the one
I don't want to table it.
you don't want to table.
Not really.
That's no, okay, very good.
What was the other thing I voted on?
You voted no on reconsidering the consent calendar approval.
Oh, I don't, okay. Perfect.
Now then, I would
Follow the rules.
entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar items 1.1 through 1.9.
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Very good. Moving ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, sir.
I like to test your ability.
Yeah, that was it, man. I think I stepped up.
I thought you did really
You
good.
stepped
Yeah,
up, you did
I
a good
did.
job.
2.2.
Okay, so this item is to consider adopting administrative charges to recover indirect costs.
Yes.
The item was brought before the board on June 21st of this year and was referred to the Finance Committee, who heard the item on July 24th. We're trying to establish administrative charges, basically called an overhead rate, to cover the indirect costs the district incurs when the district provides services to certain customers, and include things like development project review, repairing infrastructure, like if a hydrant gets run over, something like that. It's calculated using the methodology provided in the cost of service report that was approved by the board back in 2013. And the methodology simply divides the indirect costs by the direct costs and comes up with a factor. It gets applied to future projects. The overhead rate proposed for the coming year for 17-18 using this methodology is 221%. The current overhead rate is 205%. And so although that would appear like it's a 16% increase, it's actually about an 8% increase to go from 205 to 221. It's adding 8% to effectively to the 205%. And the staff would be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
I do have a speaker request. Mr. Huntsinger. Mr. Huntsaker. I'm a neighbor's Huntsinger.
Mike Hunsaker, 115 Equestrian Court. It was mentioned in the documents, board package, that this was to recover $1.6 million. I don't imagine we have that many accidents or contracting we do outside So it seems like a good deal of this is logically related to review plans. And do we really spend that much money reviewing plans? And if it's reviewing plans, maybe we should have something that doesn't, which is more fixed. Now, that aids developers, of course, but I get concerned about making sure that we take care of things appropriately. There was also a question of the actual rates. There was a mentioning in documents that it's 205, I think you just mentioned, and the 192, was it, where we have the increases in rates. That doesn't seem to quite represent that, but it's still a pretty good size chunk of increase. I think needs some explanation. Thank you.
So I can add, in terms of the percent increase, the math is pretty simple. It's indirect cost divided by direct cost. Our indirect costs have gone up a bit, and our direct costs have actually gone down. So that's when you have the numerator going up and the denominator going down, it increases the number somewhat, a little bit more rapidly than like the inflation rate or something like that. So, and I'm not sure the other reference that Mr.
The
Hunsaker-
160, that 1.6 million?
Yeah, so that, it's just an estimate based on how much of these types of activities we've done in the past. And if we have similar experience in this year and use this labor rate, if it's adopted, it comes up to about $1.6 million. I don't know if we have a better breakdown in terms of how much is development services related, how much is for damaged infrastructure. We also have one of our inspectors that actually does work for another district, and we bill him out, not just his direct rate, but we throw the overhead rate on top of that. So those are the three major items that lead to that $1.6 million. And John, I don't know if you have a breakdown of that 1.6 or if anybody else does. Is it important, the breakdown to the board?
No.
Okay, so that's generally what it is.
Very good.
Yeah,
Yes, sir?
I would just like to say, Mr. Hernandez, that this board has made it a practice to have new development pay its own way.
Oh, yeah.
And that, obviously, by looking at these numbers, if you look at prior to 2012, when they were only charging 75%, that this board has increased that so development does pay its own way. And I think this board appreciates all the fine work that our staff does.
Very good. I will entertain
Move for
a,
approval.
in a second.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Moving on. Item 2.3, ACWA Committee Appointment Nominations.
Okay, Aqua is requesting committee nominations from Aqua members for the 18-19 term. Committees are a really integral part of Aqua activities, so they need very engaged folks that sit on the committees. Just so you know, the district, Vallecitos, is responsible for all costs associated with attendance and participation of. So if there's a out-of-town conference, we pay for all that travel. Aqua does not pay for it. Nominations are due to Aqua no later than September 29th, and the appointments will be made by the incoming Aqua president in December. So just because we nominate somebody does not necessarily mean they'll be on the committee, but it's likely that they will be. As you notice, Director Elitharp is not with us today, but he did share with me that he does have previous experience on 3 of Aqua's committees: energy, water quality, and groundwater. And he expressed interest, and particularly in the energy, but he'd be happy to serve in any or all of 3 of those capacities. Currently, we have Director Hernandez on the groundwater committee, and Director Martin is on the energy and membership committees. And we're just looking for direction from the board as to what committees we'd like to nominate directors.
Well, I think that Director Elitharp on the Energy Committee would be a definite plus for the committee, as well as for us. So I would withdraw from the Energy Committee and let him apply. And the other committee membership, they meet 4 times a year, twice at the 2 conferences, which I attend, and the other ones are 6 months in between those, and they're up in Sacramento. Well, the burden on Vallecitos is that I don't fly. So I have to drive up there, which is an expense. stay overnight, one night, which is an expense, which you don't have if you fly. So I'm gonna withdraw from both committees, because not only can I only participate 50% of the time, but especially with energy, I think that the president would do just a great job at it.
And I presently am on the groundwater committee, and I'm still very interested in that, and would like to continue to participate. The question I had, in the email that I got, they indicated, do I need to do anything more than just make this statement, or is there?
Yeah, no, I take care of it.
Yep.
I complete the form and
All
send
right.
it off.
Thank you very much.
If we need like a signature or something, we'll get in touch with you, but otherwise we take care of that.
Very good. So,
We have until, I'm sorry,
go ahead.
do we have until the end of September?
September
December
29th is when we do.
29th? So at that point, okay, we don't have to do anything.
Yeah, no.
We can now on part of it, okay.
Right.
I would like to ask a question of both of the two that are on the committees. Although you weren't able to attend all four, Director Martin, what did you do on this committee? What did you do as a membership? What's involved? I guess I'm curious.
On the membership committee, what you would do normally, having the time, is you'd go out and make visits along with other membership people to get new members to come in, hopefully. Or look at your local agencies nearby you that are not, of which I have looked at a few over the 2 years, but haven't been as participatory, I think, as a board member should be, because I think missing half the meetings is not a good idea.
And at the meetings, at the conferences, what were those meetings like? I mean, you went to the meeting.
Talking about the successes
Oh, just
of
talk.
who they
It
brought
was-
in. Yeah, membership is the easiest committee, because
Right.
they have a whole bunch of people on it.
All right, and then you said you were on the energy, on that one, what did energy do?
They
I mean,
talked
if-
about all the upcoming, and the leader of it is Valley Center.
Gary
Gary
Rand.
Rand?
Gary Arant, who really runs it for this county. I
Right.
mean, he takes
Yes.
over, so there's not a lot to do except to understand. And I have had some inner talks with SDG&E over some of the questions that Gary brought up.
Okay.
So there is some interaction there.
Were
But
there
I think they can-
teleconferencing or,
There has been teleconferencing, and those I have me.
okay.
But the trips up there, I just can't.
And is it a lot of email correspondence, et cetera?
Not a lot from my end, no.
Okay. And how about you, Jim? I'm just curious.
Oh, my goodness, the groundwater committee is, let me think. There are probably 50 members on the groundwater committee, and there are,
Biggie now.
pardon?
It's a big one.
Oh, and there are at least another 100 in the audience that show up. They're talking about Sigma, they're talking about the preparation of the groundwater areas and who's in charge of them and who's in conflict with them. They went through the objectives. The state brings in a state speaker to tell us what the latest regulations are and where we can go on the website to find out. We at Vallecitos, we are not premier or major groundwater infrastructure, so we don't have to do anything. San Diego is, so they're involved, and so is Vista, because they have the big one up at Henshaw. So, but it is really to find out, as you know, if we do find water, what do we gotta do if we find it? So that's primarily it.
Okay, now, I guess I was really curious as to what was your time commitment. So if I were to pick
Oh,
a committee, I'm just curious.
Groundwater, we meet 4 times a year as well, and twice at the conference.
Uh-huh.
And then there's one coming up in Sacramento. The one before that was a teleconference, and I think that's why we're going back to Sacramento, because although it takes place with telecommunication, it's hard to hear, and the people are talking amongst themselves, so it's not as beneficial as face-to-face at either the conference or in Sacramento. Sacramento, and in our case, because I do fly, you leave in the morning, you come back at night, one day.
And then as a member, does Aqua ask you to do like Director Martin was saying that there's some, he may have interacted with like SCG&E. Do you, as members, do they also?
You can also then volunteer for subcommittees,
I see.
and I'm on the land planning subcommittee. They're a little parochial, I must say. The Sacramento people, they seem to be getting together, and then I'm sort of the,
Gee, Sacramento,
yeah.
So time-wise, I'm curious.
Minimal.
Time-wise, and then benefit in learning
Oh,
for you, and then also for the
benefit
district as a
for
whole.
anyone, at least on the groundwater, is really eye-opening. And with land planning, and Betty Ferguson, I know you're not here, but I'm gonna tell you, finally, they understand, we are a land planning organization. If we shut the water off, all those people out there developing are gonna go, and now what do we do? So, that's the essence. We're trying to integrate land planners with water folks to see how, in fact, all this comes together. So, there's gonna be a symposium sometime in the fall at Stanford with regard to land planners and water people. So, it's also very interesting, although, as I say, you kind of got to wedge your way into it. They're not.
No, that's all right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for indulging me. I was
Okay.
just,
All right.
hadn't really spoken about what was involved and before I made.
Okay, well,
Thank you.
If I may,
Yes.
Director Hernandez, I think it's a really important time for the district to stay involved with those particular two committees, energy and groundwater, because we're in the process of going out to do some RFPs to get consultants on board to look at both, like a solar project and for groundwater. So if there's things that are happening at the state level that may affect what we're proposing to do, it'd be good to be on the inside. of that.
absolutely, absolutely.
Great.
This is a note and file, is it?
I believe so. I don't know if
Yeah.
there's any action.
All right.
We'll certainly take the feedback and compile it into the
Okay.
nominations that we submit.
Moving on to 2.4.
Okay, so what you're gonna hear, and I believe it's gonna be Jason today, we're gonna get an update on the CIP projects, it's the year-end report. So Jason, take it away.
All right, give me just a minute to set this up. Apologize, I gotta click a few more clicks than I'm normally used to. Okay, I think that's, let's see if this works. Okay, good evening, Vice President Hernandez and fellow board members. I'm here to give a end-of-the-year report on our capital projects for fiscal year 2016-2017. As you know, the fiscal year ends June 30th. Takes us a few months for all the invoices to come through, projects to close out, for us to put this presentation together for you. So I'm going to try to be short, try to be informative. This is meant to be interactive, so certainly if you have any questions, feel free to stop me. And of course, it's not clicking forward, so give me another second here. This all worked when I tried it earlier. Oh, I might not have turned it on. It always helps to turn it on. Okay, quick outline of what I'm going to go over. I'm going to go over the end-of-the-year reports, what we call our fourth quarter reports. That is included in your board packet. This information is available to the public. I'm just going to go over how those reports are found, accessed on our website, and then just go over one as an example. Also going to go over the project summary spreadsheet that was also included in your board packet, just give you some context for what those numbers mean. And lastly, just go over 4 projects that were completed last fiscal year. So show you some photographs, some things that we're doing. So the quarterly reports, we put them out every 4 months. This is for all our active capital projects. That's a snapshot from our website. Again, this information is for public dissemination. I want to thank District Engineer Gumpel for challenging the group to find ways to improve these reports. You will notice in your board packet those reports now have a map or a graphic at the bottom, just adding some more information for the public. We also did a real quick survey of about 4 or 5 neighboring agencies to see how do they get information on their capital projects out to the public. And I was pleased to find out that nobody really goes into the depth that we do on our projects. So that made me feel really good. But we're always looking for ways to improve the information to the public. So I'm going to see if I can click on this link, which it doesn't do, to go to the website.
Is there a 12-year-old in the house?
You know, it all works when I do this in practice, but then when I actually go to do it, it fails. And believe it or not, we do have some IT issues to work out in this
Hard to
boardroom. That's hard to believe. Well,
This is exactly how it works at home for me.
Yeah, I've been in business meetings where I'm doing hand puppets on the wall because the damn machine doesn't work.
I'm sorry.
okay, let's see. Okay, there we go.
Uh-huh, look at that.
Yeah, it's working.
Ooh, you can stretch
All
it
right.
there.
Got our website up, wonderful webpage, Vallecitos. So we'd go to the departments, go to the best department around, engineering, click down to the capital facilities group and our active capital improvement projects, and we will have our interactive map show up. I'm going to maximize that so you can see it a little bit more clearly. So you got a Google map of our projects. We have 10 projects on this map. 2 of them are in a planning phase, one of which was just completed, so that will come off the list. 4 of these are in design, and 4 of these are in various phases of construction. You've got a list index over there on the left. I can click any of the pins. I'm just going to click to this one just to give you an example of what these reports look like. So this is for the South PRS station, pressure reducing station upgrade, a project that Director Martin was asking about. And if I click on the link, that description was there, is actually now shown in this report. I'm going to just zoom out so you can see that a little bit more clearly. So a short description, the quarterly reports give a short description of the project. For this project, as you noted, it's an upgrade project to some of the oldest stations that we have. These stations, if you looked at the map, they're on the far northern fringe of our district. It takes about 35 minutes one way to get there. These projects have no remote control or monitoring capabilities. So this project is to upgrade these stations, give us that control, give us that monitoring, as well as making some structural and mechanical upgrades. So a quarterly report like this will tell you what we did in that quarter. So for this project, we were basically completing the design and getting the project out to bid. There were no change orders on the project. We give a short schedule. And then the outstanding issues, which we're going to try to tackle the next quarter, which we are currently in, completing the bid process and awarding the project, which you did tonight in the consent calendar. So thank you very much.
I have a question
Yes.
for you. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to beat this, but
Yep.
the last sentence shows the cause why we're doing this. It's reducing staff time and potential customer water service interruption.
Yeah, so not,
Those are the 2 selling points.
yeah, so it is reducing staff time driving out there.
How often do they do that?
Yeah, Ed's not here. I think they go out there, I don't know, weekly?
Yeah, it's weekly.
I'm guessing.
I don't know the exact frequency, but I know that they check on their tank in a lot of the facilities almost daily if they don't have remote monitoring. So when they have remote monitoring like they will on this one, then it's more periodically, maybe weekly or so, just to put eyes on the equipment, make sure there's no corrosion, something's not happening in there that the monitor won't show. But the other big savings is if there's an interruption to the system, they'll know sitting in at the facility here right away instead of waiting for a customer to call, having water leaking down the street, losing water for some time. And that's really the benefit. So we do save about a 70-minute round trip. And I can't really say it's daily we save it because they will have to go out there periodically anyway. But on a given week, you're saving that at least 1 or 2 or 3 times. But the bigger savings is that interruption, loss of water, and maintaining our facilities and the integrity of our system.
And is that a 2-man crew that goes out and checks it, or is that one person in a truck?
Usually one person.
Thank you.
Okay, so Next, we just have a graphic, a vicinity map that just adds a little bit of clarity, a little bit more reference to the project. And then we have a snapshot on the financials. And what you can see is the budget for the project. Again, this is for last fiscal year. And then you can kind of track how much has the consultant billed out on this project. So we know that the consultant's billed out 90%, 92% of his contract. And then in this next quarter, when we go into construction, these financials will now reflect the construction phase of the project. So we'll be seeing the bid amount and what the contractor is billing the district monthly. So we'll be able to track that. So that's what a typical report looks like. And I can go back to the map, and if there's any other projects that you'd like me to go over, I can certainly do that now, or I can move on. So I'm seeing a lot of head shakings. That's great. I will move on and hopefully get back to there we go. Okay, next I want to go over this project summary spreadsheet. It's not as elaborate as the spreadsheets you're used to seeing from the finance department, but
Thank you.
clearly a lot of really good information. So what I want to focus on is the budget amount for our capital projects is $20 million, but what the board has authorized is $1.1 million in construction contracts. So those contracts were all completed this last fiscal year. That doesn't always happen. A lot of those projects carry over into the next fiscal years, but it just so happened that for last fiscal year, we actually completed all 4 of these projects. Just to back up, this summary spreadsheet is really an internal tracking tool that my group uses to manage these projects and help provide us with the information to create the quarterly reports, answer any questions that board members may have, or the GM may have, or anybody else. So another thing we track with these capital projects is the monthly billing from the contractors. We track the projected invoices versus the actual. So what this is a really great tool when we were building our $23 million plant upgrades or our $15 million reservoirs, and we really can manage that cash flow working with the finance department to make that money available when it's necessary. In the last fiscal year, $1.1 million, not as important, but still a good tracking tool because we know in this next fiscal year we are going to have some large construction projects. So still something we do with all our projects. The other thing we do is we track our change orders. Construction change orders are important. It's an important metric to our group. Last fiscal year, we had 9 construction change orders, 8 of which were on the lift station pump improvement project, about $17,000, and 1 was on our metal arc tertiary filter media replacement project, $153,000. Now, that value right there is very large, especially for the contract of that project, which was $250,000. That number sticks out. It's a bit of an anomaly. It's what we would call a project within a project. You may recall in March approving that change order, and I'll clarify a little bit more what that was, but that really was an anomaly that we had an opportunity to take care of. So what that did to our numbers, the industry standard for change orders is about 8-10%. Last fiscal year, we had 15.5%, so we were above the average. And it was because of that one particular project, really blew our numbers up. If you took that project out, which I'll call an anomaly to what we normally see, we were about 1.5%, which is more in line with what we've been tracking over the last several years. So just to give you sort of a historical perspective, if I look back at the last 11 years, and we kind of look at what our averages are, how are we doing with our projects, and we compare that to last fiscal year. We're below average. Last fiscal year was below average in the number of change orders we had, below average in the dollar amount of our change orders, but we, again, like I said, we were above average in our percentage because of that particular project. But if you look back at what we're tracking prior to that, we have percentages of 0.3%, 0.5%, negative 2.4%. So that 1.5%, if we hadn't have had that anomaly, would have been kind of in line with what we're seeing. But the real takeaway is this: over the last 11 years, with all the projects we've had, including $15 million plant upgrades, a $23 million reservoir, we've still maintained a 2.81% change order percentage. That's well below the industry standard. Yes, Director.
Quick question, if I may, and I appreciate where you're going with this, but it's 15.5% last year.
Yes.
And I appreciate the end of the years when you were more on target.
Sure.
But you're off target.
Yes, absolutely.
my question is, and I think it's, I love listening to these things sometimes because it's always interesting when you say, the change order which you approved. Well, was there a choice? Could we have said, no, we're not approving that, stop the
Absolutely.
project? I mean, I don't,
Yeah.
I'm just saying the verbiage to me sometimes is like, yeah, we approved it, we didn't have a choice.
I only meant to say that you approved it just for reference, to just remind you that it was an approved
I
change
remember
order.
very
Yeah, it was not meant to
Oh, I understand.
put any blame or
I
anything.
understand, I just, finger pointing always.
No finger pointing.
You guys approved
Okay.
He's kept his fingers like this the whole time.
it. Yeah, I know, I noticed they did it really
I'm
well.
only pointing with this.
James uses fingers.
Well, to continue with that finger pointing, I will point a finger right now. As I continue that analysis, looking at those projects, looking at what we've done over the last 11 years, and a lot of that was before I got on board.
There you go.
But-
I like that.
But I'm amazed at how low our change order percentage was. And again, considering the large size projects that we had, it's really a testament to the time, effort, and diligence of the engineering department, working with, Ed's not here, but a nod to Ed and his staff. And certainly, once those projects go to construction, the diligence of our inspection staff, keeping those percentages down, keeping that negotiation down. Yes, sir.
Do you have a standard contingency that you always add to a project?
Yes.
And is it usually 5 to 10%?
We have a policy, it's between 5 and 10% based on the size, the dollar amount of the contract. Typically, it's 10% per policy. I think everything over 2 million is 7.5%. And then I think everything over 5 million, oh, is it 1 million? Okay. And then I think anything over 5 million is 5%. Yeah, so it's a
Very
sort of a
good.
sliding
All right.
scale as the project gets larger.
Very good. So obviously, these change orders fit it within the contingency.
Yes.
I'm just
Yeah, and
checking.
we budget for those contingencies. We have to because we just don't know.
I'll bring it up in the report about Encina here.
And that's, again, those percentages per the district's policy is in line with the industry standards.
Yeah. Very good.
So just wanted to point a finger at the district and say we've done a really good job over the last 11-year managing our construction projects with keeping our average change order percentage at 2.8, lower than the average. What we've realized over those 11 years is a savings of $3.4 million to the district. That's a savings to the ratepayers for our capital projects that are replacement projects, and savings to our developers for those capital projects that are capacity projects. So those are monies not spent, which I think is a really good thing. And again, this is just a little historical analysis looking back.
When you're done.
Oh,
I just wanted to say, yes, congratulations on that savings, but I wanted to thank you for going over the slide before when you were showing the 15.4 and our average 2.8, because I think many of us, when we look at these things, we have a tendency to focus on whatever one single item or percentage pops out, and oh my goodness. But what I really appreciate is how you've explained that our average, and that is what our business is. It's this long term. It's not really it's moment to moment, but it's really long term. And many of our decisions that we make affect down. And I really appreciate it that you explain that, because I'm not so sure, had I just been looking at it, if I would have quite got what that average meant looking at that. And yes, I applaud 11 years worth of great management and great, what's the word? Conscientious planning, both on finance and engineering, and everyone. Phenomenal.
It's
But
a group
I
effort.
appreciate this is simple in front of our audience if they want to go to the website, but I also am a little sad that it can be misread so easily, I'm not fond of graphs for that reason, but it's very beautifully put. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Very good.
Okay, that's basically the project summary. Lastly, I'll just point out that we also track, as part of this tool, we track our outside contracts. So we have outside contracts with planners, designers, special inspectors, and we just track those contracts, where are those contracts along in the year, how far are they billed out. We've also started this last year tracking the dollar amount of the material purchases that the district directly purchases as part of our capital projects. Just another way of just kind of pulling that information out, having it available, should that information be needed by a party. Also tracking the reimbursements on our capital improvement projects. In fact, I think we got $55,000 last week as reimbursement from the state, partial reimbursement on one of our projects. So again, just for tracking purposes.
And does the engineering department have a thumbnail idea of what a engineering contract should be based on the estimate for the building? I mean, in the architectural game, 8 to 10% is the, if somebody says, how much it's gonna cost, we find out a building, 8 to 10%. Does the engineering have that kind of a thumbnail number?
Do we have that experience project to project, is what you're asking?
Generally, if we were to have a $3 million project, what would you anticipate the engineering contract to be?
We have a pretty good idea when those projects come up what they're going to be, and I can't tell you what our track record is, although we have a running pool internally. We always try to bet who's going to be closest to the pin.
But if
we're
you're
pretty good.
But what if you were on the phone and somebody wanted, well, so what's the percentage should be of the construction
I
project?
think what he's asking is,
for
what
The design
percentage of the
costs.
construction costs would you budget for design costs?
There-
Oh, yes. Typically, for design costs, it's like 20%. Yeah, and then I think 10% we usually use for planning costs.
Okay.
And that's just kind of, that's real high
Yeah, right.
elevation,
Okay.
you know, and those
Yeah.
are just kind of the percentages that we
Mhm.
use. But
Very good.
we use that very early on, and we really try to dial that down quick when a project becomes realized, and certainly through the budget process when we're trying to get those numbers
Yeah.
across.
Thank you.
Okay. Lastly, I'm just going to go over 4 projects that we completed last fiscal year. The projects are the Lift Station 1 Waterman valve replacement project. That was actually completed the prior year, but because of its administration reasons, we actually didn't close it out until last fiscal year. We also have the Lift Station 1 pump improvement project, which was accepted last July. The Knoll Road sewer replacement project was shortly thereafter. This last winter, we completed the Meadowlark tertiary filter replacement project and accepted that last June. So real quick summary on some of those projects. The Waterman valve replacement project was the replacement of these valves, what we call sluice gates, which are just sliding valves that are located in a concrete vault, diverts flow to the station or to Encina. Those valves were installed in '84. They were encrusted. They were non-functional. This project involved the bypass that was operated 24 hours a day for 5 days, managing over 7,000 gallons per minute of sewage, diverting that away from the structure so we could actually do the work. So this is what the structure looks like, a non-functioning valves there. This is before the project, and then after the project was complete. New stainless steel valves, a rehabilitated concrete functioning vault, actually doing what it's supposed to do. Above the top of the vault there along the boulevard in front of the lift station, and then when the project was complete, new vault top, safety hatch, valve control stem so that they control the valves on top of the vault. The next job is the lift station pump improvement project. Basically, this project was to increase sewer flow from the station to the treatment plant to generate more recycled water. So this project also involved some structural upgrades. The building was built in the 60s, needed a lot of rehabilitation to bring it up to make it more efficient. So one of the things we did is we made some structural improvements. We replaced some beams that are used to lift the pumps and motors in and out of the station. We replaced those, and what that looks like, if you can see, there's it looks like a jack wedged in there supporting that beam. I will say MacGyvered in, if you will. So what we did is we replaced that with a true 2-ton capacity beam with an electric chain hoist. Again, that allows the staff to move the pumps and motors out of the station for refurbishment and maintenance. Down below, you see that 1-ton beam, which was under capacity to lift the equipment. That was replaced with a new beam going in with the contractor there on scaffolding. That scaffolding is about 20 feet above the ground. This is all buried below ground. That's kind of a long view of the new beam. Again, you can see that scaffolding there. And then the final product, that beam, 2-ton capacity with the chain hoist, able to move that equipment around for our staff. Some of the mechanical upgrades, replacing the piping with new glass line pipe that gives it more corrosion protection over its life, replacing valves, reconfiguring the pump orientation to make the station itself more efficient, adding that new greater capacity 1,900 gallon per minute pump, again, to get more flow to Meadowlark. We also moved a flow meter out of the station, outside into an exterior vault for safer access, and added a new chemical injector, which is for odor control. So what that looks like is, looking down into the lower level, you've got those 4 existing pumps, one of which was scrapped. The other 3 were refurbished and relocated. The contractor's relocating those pumps, demoing the concrete basins, and then reconfiguring them with our new larger pump there in the number 1 position. Then the contractor replumbs the header piping that's taking the flow from the pumps to the force main outside of the station, and then that's the final product, all painted, anchored, and complete. Additional upgrades, this is looking outside, a new vault installed on the existing pipe. Then that new pipe was replaced through the vault, and looking down into the vault, you see the new flow meter with the chemical injector. That's kind of what the west side of the building looked like before the project. After it's complete, new vault in, all paved and clean. Third project was the Knoll Road Sewer Replacement Project. That was a unique little project, replacing 300 feet of pipe. That was situated between the Home Depot and the freeway. That pipe had a sag in the line, what we call a belly in the line, where solids collect, reduces the capacity of the line, increases its chance for a spill. So that project, because of its unique location, required a very extensive detour plan, coordinating with the city. We had to coordinate with Caltrans for the closure of the San Marcos Boulevard off-ramp. That work was all performed at night. Our inspection supervisor, Lee Kirby, there on the right, did all the inspection. That's the manhole in the intersection that we tied in, and that's the final product along a Knoll Road, all paved and complete. And lastly, our Meadowlark Tertiary Filter Media Replacement Project. What you're looking at there are the 6 tertiary basins at the treatment plant that treats the secondary wastewater effluent through these filters into the chlorine contact tank to make our recycled water. Those basins had a monomedia in it, and we replaced that with a multimedia with finer particles, with the intent to improve the quality of our recycled water and reduce the chemical consumption of the plant itself. So what that looks like is the Contra basically vacuums out that media, what's called anthracite, dumps it into these black super sack bags, and then hauls them off-site to be disposed of. Once that's done, we can look at the bottom of those basins. They haven't been seen in 10 years. So we really wanted to see what is down there, and that what you see, those black squares, that's called an under drain. So that under drain actually was in really good condition. We got minor repairs. We were really excited because any repair of that was in the dollar figure of about $75,000 per basin. So we were very excited that they were in good condition. However, we did find out, and I don't know if you can see it on that screen, but the bubbling, the failing of the epoxy system on those basins, and that was the generation of that change order that staff brought to the board, that $153,000. And really, we had an opportunity here to fix this. We could have just said, no, continue with the project. We'll get this as a budget line item next year. But that would have caused us to basically come back, remove all the media, throw it away, fix this, and bring all new media in. So it would have been really cost prohibitive to do that. So we brought this forward. The board, with our recommendation, approved that change order. And then we did move forward with the subcontractor, removing that lining, putting a more robust system in. After that was complete, the prime contractor moved back in using a hopper system there. You can see with the forklift dumping that new media in, and then using water, what's called inducting that material back into the basins. That gets leveled off, brought to the right elevation. And then the final process is putting water, what's called a backwash, forcing water up through the bottom, up through the under drain system, through the media, scraping off all the undesirable fines, and just leveling it off, giving it a very homogeneous state. And then it goes through some testing processes to make sure it's working right. And that is the last project that we completed, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
The rerouting of the area between, next to Home Depot, I heard you say that was all taken at night?
All the work was done at night, yes.
I commend the byjeebers out of you folks, everybody. I knew the project was going on, but I kept waiting for it to begin. And, because I don't travel that road often, but rarely at night. And I'm looking at these photos and I went, well, no wonder. So, magnificent job to all of you. Commend everybody that was involved, and you see them, good job. Thank you. Yes, sir.
On the San Marcos lift station #1, great job with traffic control. The amount of work that you did, no one would believe that much is underground. I mean, I know we've seen it, we've gone out there, but just an amazing amount of work. And kudos to the staff and crew that kept San Marcos Boulevard moving through it. Another question, as well as dealing with Caltrans on the closure of the off-ramp. The media filters that were down in Meadowlark, that was all taken out
Mhm.
and put in those bags.
Yep.
And we're gonna assume that's contaminated waste?
Technically, it's not. We did some stuff, we did some testing, I believe, on the pH and some other contaminants. It was basically taken to a landfill. The landfill takes a sample of it, they run some tests, and they determine it's non-hazardous, and they accepted it.
Who transported it and what landfill does it go to?
The contractor transported that. We have a chain of custody forms for where it went to. I can't remember exactly what landfill it went to, but we do have all that paperwork on file, because we want to make sure that it actually got to where it was supposed to get to. I just can't recall.
Okay, because it seems to me that I recall when we visited Olevenheim Dam, its processing center there, at the end of the processing, it showed there was things taken out of the water, probably not the same type of things we're talking about at Meadowlark, and they were transported somewhere.
Mhm.
And when I asked the transporter where they were, he said, well, that's not my bag of tricks, that's up to the person who I'm taking it from to do its chain of transfer.
He just didn't want to tell you. It's
That's
a secret.
That's what I assume. So it's the same with this. I mean, who does this kind of work? Is there a number of firms that do it? Do you bid it out?
Well, this is part of the prime contractors, that was part of his scope of work. So
Okay.
he has a subcontractor that's doing it.
That does that.
Yeah, there are definitely specific companies that will haul non-hazardous versus hazardous. Those are clearly different transport companies and
Sure.
definitely different locations, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, great. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Great job. Great job.
Very good.
Nice
I
presentation.
really appreciated this report. That was great, and it was very impressive, and as the other directors have said, you, as a whole unit, you do a really great job.
It's a group effort.
I do remember when the project went on Knoll, I thought we'd have lots of problems, and there was nothing.
Our inspection supervisor said, never again at night.
Was that Kirby?
Well,
We will probably, we'll make him do it though.
yeah.
Yeah, I imagine that
good.
was.
He'll learn to love it.
Absolutely, and we have projects that are coming up in this next fiscal year. The San Marcos Interceptor project, as you may recall, that's going to be on San Marcos Boulevard. That'll all be night work as well, and that's a requirement from the city.
Yeah.
And we work with them on that.
This is a little off, because I was really gonna mention it in my report from the Water Authority, but they were telling us about the Carlsbad Flow Control Facility project that's up there on San Marcos and Rancho Santa
Yep,
Fe, and that
yep.
lot by the high school.
Yep.
And they've been doing all this stuff, and they did a presentation showing what
Oh.
they've done, and then it said they have another, they'll be out again on phase 2, I believe it was, I was trying to think, in November. Is that in the same area?
I do not recall. They haven't
right.
contacted us.
But
They
they
did
have
contact
the-
us about that project in particular when that began, but I haven't heard of a phase 2.
But I don't remember any impact at all on that corner during this process for the Water Authority. It just it blows my mind how you connect with cities and traffic and control and all of you and work your timing out, but
Sometimes it works good, sometimes it doesn't.
well, we always hear when.
We have our hiccups.
It's quite a big ordeal up there. Good report, thank you so much.
Director Hernandez?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
I have one other comment. Do you think you could talk to the county water authority and maybe have that big thing they have there accidentally hit that building? Knock down that ugly old gas station?
It's
Thank you.
not in the right way, they won't do it.
They built a $100 million school next to that.
Yeah.
That's the county property.
Director Hernandez?
Yes.
If I may, I hate to put you on the spot, but Jason showed us how this was like a web portal. People, members of the public can go see this online, some of this information. Do we have any idea how many hits we get from the public looking at our CIP projects?
That may be in Chris's
Okay.
purview to, I don't have that information. We kind of get the information onto the website,
Right.
and Chris and his group sort of finds
Monitor.
out how many
Okay,
hits,
just seeing if you
how
have
many
any idea.
likes and thumbs up. Although, maybe we should get a thumbs up, thumbs down.
There you go.
Oh.
You like this one? Yeah.
Be nice to know.
Only if he segregates the Vallecitos.
Yeah.
Have you looked at that? No.
Okay.
Very good. All right, information only, any other questions? Seeing none, moving on. General Manager's report.
All right, I've got a few here. Just to let the board know that the Water Authority has released, I believe it's the final draft of the water shortage contingency plan, I apologize. And that's basically the roadmap about how they'll handle future water supply shortages. And I believe it'll be going to the board, the Water Authority Board,
It
at
should
the
be
end of this month. And it's a good time to be doing the planning when you're not in the middle of a drought. It's a good time to be doing that, so that's good. Next week is the CASA conference down in San Diego. I'm not sure which of the directors are going, but our delegate is President Elitharp, and he will not be there. So Director Evans is our alternate, and she will be casting the vote for the Board of Directors who will sit on the CASA Board of Directors. The Newland Sierra project, their project is out in the environmental review stage. We did provide district comments to the EIR. We submitted those, I believe it was on Monday of this week. So thanks to our land development group, got some good comments in there. The adjacent property, so tonight we approved surplusing it. You may have noticed there are some people up on the site. They're doing some fire breaks and weed control up there. So CAL FIRE is helping us with the inmate prisoners that are out on work release. So if you see anybody else working up there, that's what that's all about. And kind of similar to what Jason was talking about, we do have some sewer cleaning planned to start on Sunday night, I believe it is, on San Marcos Boulevard. And that's all gonna be night work. You can imagine the traffic control required to put out Vector trucks in the middle of a prime arterial road. And we coordinate with the city and make sure we do that after hours. So it'll probably take several days, and I believe it's starting on the evening of, Sunday evening.
Glenn,
Yes,
how many hours do they get at night?
It's typically something like from 10 at night till 5 in the morning.
5.
It's not a lot, so they really,
No, I would assume it would be busy fairly quickly.
yeah, but we can get a lot of cleaning done if we don't have to spend half our day doing traffic control. And we still put up proper traffic control, but it's a lot easier at night. And that's all, that's the five items I have.
Very good. District Council.
The contingencies is pretty tricky business. Having just
What did you say, what's tricky?
contingencies in public works contracts is pretty tricky business. Really having just completed about $1/3 billion worth and being involved in $1/3 billion worth of hospital improvements, during this last 10 years, things have been very competitive, and a lot of times contractors will underbid a project just so there's this process where they can try to catch up by issuing change orders. So there's a real struggle for that, and so it's not always an easy process. And I think, as complicated as some of the district projects have been, I think you're pretty well on target. We ended up being at almost 20%. Now we have to go through the state, OSHPD, and hospitals are very complicated. There's a lot of things in the walls and gas lines and water lines and everything like that. But nevertheless, like I say, it's a pretty tricky business to get it right. The only other thing I was going to mention was just the CASA conference. It looks like there should be some interesting stuff next week. And it's here, so we don't have to travel to Sacramento. So there's 218 stuff and regional notification revisions. CalPERS has a letter out about uniforms as compensation. There's this age-old problem as to whose responsibility it is for facilities, replacing facilities in the middle of the right-of-way and relocating, those types of facilities, and who's responsible for that? Is it us, or is it, in some cases, the cities? So we're looking forward to that on Thursday, and I hope to see you down there.
All right. San Diego County Water Authority.
Well, there's a meeting next week, which will be, and last meeting I wasn't here, but I had a couple of things I'd like to share. There's nothing on new in legislation, because I'm sure you're aware that they're returning from their summer recess on Monday, and it will be quite interesting to see what they try to get done before it's the fiscal year ends. I mean, their year ends in September, right? 17th or something, real short. So, on that. And then when we were talking about the media filters and that, one of the things we had just recently talked about was water treatment operations at the desal and, let me just check the words right. At the desal and at the Twin Oaks Valley Water Treatment Plant. And with the drought and the changes in the flow of water, we've been having, like, the water's got, suddenly it's a lot more metro water, or it's desal water, or it's Colorado water. They have found that they're having these rapid changes are causing problems with those plants, those operating plants in using their filters. So they're going through a lot of experience in replacing the biofilters and how to address that. One of the issues for the desal is that Agua, is it Hedionda Lagoon has had algae bloom, and that was nothing they anticipated to the degree it's been. So desal's doing great, but that's one of those unexpected surprises of dealing with that. And the same is happening at the Twin Oaks Valley. They're having problems because the water comes in with higher salinity or higher, depending where it comes from. Something you don't think about when the water's there. You think, oh, we got the water, and now it depends what it is.
Mm-hmm.
On a little legal thing, we just approved a new administrative code that they are absolutely no use of personal electronics during closed sessions. I was interesting that someone, I guess, did something and they had to come up and codify it. So we wouldn't do that anymore. And then finally, we were talking about the dam, the Oroville Dam. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it. This is a YouTube video. It shows, we saw it at the, what they've done, what it looked like, how they're repairing it. But what's really exciting about it from our perspective in Southern California is that when we did the dam raise for San Vicente, the Water Authority does seem to be fairly innovative with what it's trying to do. And when we raised the dam there, they went through quite a process to have it allowed to use roller compacted concrete. And a lot of people fought it for a long time. It turned out it's really great, and they are replacing their dam up there with roller compacted concrete based on the San Vicente dam raise. So once again, I think Southern California and San Diego County in particular has done something impressive, and they're very, leading the edge. It just always impresses me. But you'll find that kind of interesting. They said what happened was the dam, when it was first, that spillway was on rock, but the water came down. There was one area where there was just this pocket of soft soil under this solid rock, and the way it fell, it hit right on, and that's how it came out. But nobody knew. They all assumed it was all rock. So, very fun little video, YouTube. And that's it. Another meeting on Thursday next.
Encino Wastewater Authority, we had our capital committee this morning, and interesting, that's why I was querying about the percentage. I and one of the other board members, and then the third board member, questioned a change order for engineering services that was about 12%. And and staff explained it, and I'm being positive here, but I broke it down with them and I said, I appreciate that, but that's just the house around the equipment. It has nothing to do with the equipment. The equipment was the original contract. This was a change order for the box. And I said, that's too much money, and I think you need to go back and renegotiate. So they're going back and we'll see what happens, but I think we can save a little bit of money there. We don't get much coming our way, but on the overall, maybe it's gonna send a message, much like we have on our project. So that was, the board meeting is next week, 2 weeks from now. Standing committees, maybe at that finance.
We had a finance committee meeting, and the minutes are appropriately put in item 1.1. And I couldn't say any better than the minutes do. Crack staff, Ann does an awesome job, as does Diane. And if you have any questions, go ahead and ask.
No questions, and we have not had an engineering committee, but I'm going to ask that we schedule one and get an update on our locker room with whatever percentage of plans they may have, and see where we're at on that.
The price of gold keeps going up, so
And
let's get it quick.
we're towing the line. They're doing a fine job there. Directors' reports on meetings. Mr. Snell.
Zach Calhoun. And we had an excellent speaker who had the audience totally enthralled in how absolutely fabulously this board worked on making sure we had a defensible rate
Uh,
program.
Yes.
And Tom, I received a comment that you did a fine presentation. It was thorough, very understanding. He indicated that he wished his staff was that well in their presentation. Also, I went to, and I'm going to ask that we consider this. I went to the San Diego County Water Authority Roundtable, where Gonzalez, whatever her name was, and I was invited to that, and and we didn't have a meeting before, so I wasn't able to bring it up then, but I would request that we consider that being a per diem item. It was very interesting, and what we found out from this assembly lady, relative to water and relative to the folks up in Sacramento, they are locked in their silos. And they rarely come out of their silos to talk to us about anything unless it directly involves them. And in the case, she's serious labor and serious union lady, and water, she only deals with water when it involves, and she's the one that's pushing the Caltrans Sandag being pushed into San Diego and El Cajon because they're the biggest users, blah, 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 and the rest of us get chopped liver. I was shocked at how bold she was about, well, this is the way it's gonna be, this is the way we are. So change needs to be done on that. But I don't know if I need to make a formal request to bring this back, or what we do about that.
Yeah, we can add it to the next, to the next.
And it's a one-time situation, and if we're a member of a group and we get invited to something, I think, again, I would bring it, or if it was to me, I would bring it before, so maybe we need a policy on that, or look at it, so. And then today, at the Urban Water Institute, this video, the pictures that perhaps are on from this video were displayed, and they had a big discussion on it. And the environmentalist that they had on the panel was still pointing backwards at 1950. And finally, the public relations director, whose name I can't remember, young lady, who finally said, well, you know, we built the 1950 Packard, and now it's 2017 Corvette, and we can't expect the Packard to compete with the Corvette. So things are different now, so she didn't say let it go, but in my mind I said let it go. He wasn't gonna let it go. And but they are, what was also interesting was, in an emergency, you can get stuff done. I mean, in days, they got this approved, mobilized, and people ready to go. where it was years trying to get a minor thing done with the environmental impact studies, the approvals, the permits, who's gonna pay for it. This was Katie bar the door, and it's gonna be done and repaired before the next season. And 1,000,000 yards of debris they had to take out of that stream bed in order to begin. It was pretty, if it's on this video, you will be fascinated.
And if I could add to that,
Yeah.
the contractor, Kiewit, they estimate that they're gonna spend 1,000,000 man-hours in repairing that facility.
580
1,000,000
people.
man-hours. It's-
So,
They're going
pretty impressive,
24/7.
pretty impressive.
At $200 an hour,
And how many?
200 an hour.
Oh, at least. Oh, yeah, it's a
With benefits.
$280 million contract.
And who's paying for it?
Well, they're having a discussion about that. Well, no, because it's an emergency thing, 70% is coming from the feds. The contractors, the state contractors, they're not happy presently because they just want to dump it on them. And they're going, whoa, whoa, whoa. And of course, the environmentalist guy who's getting restoration of areas, recreation areas, oh, no, we shouldn't have to pay for any of that. So there's going to be an arm wrestle on that, I'm almost sure. And the other thing that came out of that was whenever it's appropriate, could we get a presentation on our emergency action plan if South Lake Dam springs a leak or McMar? Because they were, although they stepped up in hours after the situation, they had not got their act together to the point that they wish they would have, but now they're well-oiled machines. So if we could bring that back so I know that those poor people downstream from South Lake don't wake up and are washed out to sea.
Good thing it's just open space.
Yeah, well, there you go. And that, Mr. Martin, is up to you now. For
Oh,
what
I
have
have
you
a
been
few, I
doing?
have a few, including
Okay.
those that some of you forgot.
I know.
After our last board meeting, which was on the 19th of July, we haven't had a board meeting since then. On the 20th, we had our employee recognition luncheon here that went very, very well. All the employees were recognized. Kudos were given to everyone. That was a nice event. Again, put on by, I believe, Diane and Ann, probably more Diane, who did a great job with the employee recognition lunch. Thank you very much. We had a finance committee meeting, which we already talked about. Attended the Sundowner that we were requested to
Oh, yes.
to join at the city,
Public.
where we had assembly people speaking, Marie Waldron, Senator Anderson from his office, quite a few people there talking about what's going on. And water, they were talking to all of us about water. It's just amazing. Water's on everyone's mind right now. And I keep telling them, we got plenty of water. We got more water than we can use.
Yeah.
Matter
And
of
we
fact,
were-
if you know
we were
anybody needs anything, we'll
recognized.
ship it to them.
We were
got water.
recognized, so it wasn't just
Uh,
also ran.
And then on the 8th, we had our San Diego North EDC, which, Charlotte, you talk about that?
What? What did we?
Jim Desmond?
Oh, yes, yes, that was,
Okay,
Mayor Desmond spoke.
right at the college.
At the college.
The biggest problem was they didn't send maps.
Yeah,
They just said it's at this room.
and so we,
And I think about 60 people made it there, where there could have been 100,
Yeah.
but they just got ticked off and left.
Yeah.
Because that's just a massive campus, and there's no signs anywhere. So they need to get their act together. staff.
and if you haven't been there in the last 5 years, get a map.
Changed.
Get a map. It's dynamically changed, very positive change, but
And
yeah,
then,
it's a whole
yesterday,
different place
if I
from where we
continue,
were.
Then yesterday, I also attended CAWA,
Oh, yes.
and today we're at the board. That's it.
The only thing I've attended recently was I participated as one of the panelists for the San Diego, the North San Diego County Association of Realtors, their commercial division. I was the only representative from the water community on the panel. Most of the folks with me were either part of the EDC or financial or finance people within the real estate world. But I will tell you that there was probably, I don't know, 60 or 70 people that are in commercial and residential real estate at this event. And I went there as one of 4 panelists thinking that probably not gonna have a lot of interest in what we're talking about. I probably did not most of the speaking, but definitely more speaking than any of the other panelists because there was a tremendous interest in water. So it was a really good event, so I'm glad I attended. And that's the only thing I've done recently.
Very good. Let's see what we're at here. Quarterly business expense, 4.1.
It's in the package.
It's in the package, note and file. Director's future agenda items, I've already mentioned one that I like. Anything else?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Couple of things. In a conversation with a few waste haulers of recently, I also understand that we have a number of septic haulers that go out and do individual septic tanks and haul it away somewhere or locally. So my question is, we have no way of knowing if people are dumping in our sewer system. Septic haulers, we have no way of knowing that.
No,
None
not
whatsoever.
unless we catch them in the act of doing so.
Right. So is there, now, I understand you put certain types of locks on certain, is that an expensive proposition? Is it worthwhile finding out? Because there's a number of septic people operating. And the person I spoke to said that they didn't ever do that, but they knew other people did. And I'm going, well, how would we know? And how do we control that? Is there a way to lock those down?
Yeah, there certainly is a way to lock them down.
There's a lot to do, I understand.
It's a lot to do, and it really impedes our ability to go out and do monitoring and cleaning of the sewer system, so it slows everything down. So there's a trade-off, better system security, but it slows down the process of maintenance.
Sure, okay, I'm just saying,
So-
because that is a problem.
Yeah, so we identify areas where we think they're likely, like we talked about a situation recently where we thought it was highly likely that that was a location, so we did take the effort to bolt those down, but we don't, as a course of business, bolt all of our manholes down.
Right.
So, but if we think there's an area that may be suspect or subject to discharge, we could do the same thing.
Well, I just heard that certain people, I guess in conversation, were being accused of potentially doing it in our manholes, and they certainly weren't, which means that somebody else was.
Yeah.
But we don't know who, we don't know where, we don't know when. So I don't know how much that cost us. Would it cost us anything? Just a thought, just a security thought.
And adjunct to that, an update, a report from Encina is coming out in October, and it seems that it's very positive that they're going to be able to open up a station there for delivery, which potentially is going to help that way they can deliver it legally, safely, and get money for Encina, which actually 22% comes back to us. So they're working on that.
Yeah, that's great.
And I forgot the other part of the report was Stone Brewing has inked a deal with Encina to deliver not only all of their pulp that's done, but they're gonna pick up and deliver all the other craft brewing pulp and deliver it. And that's free, and it gives us 30% more gas than the fog that we have, and it's helps flush out our system, it's cleaner, it's everything you want. So that's another benefit.
And one other thing, I'd like to get a report on it, doesn't need to be an agenda item. On our hillside back here, we have those antenna that have been up there for a long time. How much per year over the last 10 or 15 years? I don't find it anywhere in the budget, so it must be stuck under miscellaneous.
Okay.
how much are we taking in? Because I understand cell sites go for a lot of money. How much are we taking it in, and where does it show it in our books?
We'll put something together, we'll send it out to all the directors.
Thank you. And
Okay.
then, lastly, I guess it should be agendized. We received a letter, or I received a letter regarding someone who's been paying their bill diligently, but turns out they owe more than what the bill says, or thought that that's what happened. We need to agendize this item so we can talk about it, I believe.
Are you referring to the one that I sent out about the sewer charges?
Yes.
That one, okay.
I think we need to agendize it and speak about it, because it's, the more I think about it, the more upset I get over it. So, I'm shutting up.
Okay.
Very good. Yes, sir?
On that matter, has there been any further action or communication or movement or anything on that?
No, so we reached out to the customer, and I guess we haven't heard anything back from them.
I spoke with them on the phone and just told them that the letter was coming, what the letter contained, and I haven't heard.
So-
I did mail the letter.
So they've received the letter by now, and they're probably processing it internally. I haven't heard anything back.
Well, just, you know, I haven't heard anything from anybody either,
Right.
other than, but I wanted to get on this prior to we do. I think it's something that needs to be talked about.
So you'd like something just for a general discussion about this particular case, or in general, what happens if the
Well, in
bill's
general,
sent out
what the
incorrectly?
board policy is,
Okay.
if the board has a policy, you know, and discuss the merits, or, I thought part of it was interesting that, you know, we looked into it, we can charge them back 3 years, and said, well, they didn't do anything wrong. I mean, but I don't want to get into it, just put it on the agenda.
All right. Anything else? From anybody else? Seeing none, we're adjourned.